For many, it's the small, minute details in a game that brings out the life in its imaginary world. Minecraft is no exception, and it's chock full of features that are just begging for a little extra refinement. I'm Simply Snark and welcome. This is 50 tiny things that would improve Minecraft. This exit portal right here is sloppy. An important gameplay element that every player sees is made of bedrock. The entry portal is so special it has its own block, it even has its own theme song. Bedrock is a placeholder, a substitute till the real block shows up. The exit portal is the sketchy backdoor, but it should really have just as grand treatment as when you enter the end. This exact same mindset applies to the portal's cousin, the end gateway. It just feels somewhat rushed and incomplete to not create a new block for the occasion. While complaining about the end, another offender is the end crystal. The texturing on this is pretty basic, where it gives off the vibe that you're testing an early alpha version of the end that hasn't been finalised yet. The compass is a good idea that needs tweaking. A long-standing issue is that it's often not very helpful. It points towards the initial world spawn, always. Problem is, a lot of people's homes aren't at the world spawn. They're at their beds. And it'd be a lot more useful if the compass pointed towards that instead. There are dozens of enchantments in Minecraft, but when you've got a chest full of books, it's quite a task scanning for what you need. A very nice solution to this is giving enchanted books custom sprites, depending on what their enchantment actually is. Now, if the books have custom sprites, then of course the tools, weapons and armour are gonna need them too. Slight visual tweaks would be really cool for identification, and a nice sense of individuality for each item. Stuff made of gold and iron can be smelted back down into nuggets, but it's a rip-off. A pristine golden chestplate worth 72 nuggets returns just 1. A much fairer approach is to return nuggets based on the condition of the item. Mushroom Islands host a native mushroom, but there's not much else there, so perhaps a new mushroom mob is in order. Maybe a chicken. We'll call it a shrewster. Everything drops meat nowadays. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if flowers started dropping kebabs. This has left pigs somewhat obsolete. To re-incentivize pig farming, they should spawn larger litters than other animals. Not only is there more meat, but also just food. With so many options, it's all turned into more of a chore than a challenge. Problem is, there's not much to differentiate each food beyond saturation points. Maybe slower and faster eat times would individualize each item a bit more. Most mobs have spawn eggs, but for some reason snow and iron golems don't. Speaking of golems, they tend to take quite a beating. It'd be pretty neat if snowballs and iron ingots healed their respective golem. A lot of stuff grows in the game, so why not have mossy cobblestone and bricks also spread over time? Maybe when they're damp, they'll spread to adjacent blocks. Polar bears are okay, however there are in fact no brown or black bears in Minecraft. Tiger and mega tiger biomes would become slightly scarier if there were angry mama bears abound. Also, bears are an apex predator at the top of the food chain. Wolves hunt sheep and ocelots hunt chickens, so perhaps polar bears should hunt down literally anything that dares move in front of them. Rabbits are known to breed rapidly and often invasively. Strangely, however, they need our help to get the job done. If rabbits initiated love mode on their own, it could present a new challenge to players, where swarms of bunnies decimate your farmland. In the spirit of realism, the reanimated walking pile of bones, also known as skeletons, shouldn't float in water. In fact, due to their lack of buoyancy, it'd make more sense if they just sunk to the bottom. Spiders can climb walls, but they look really dumb doing it. When climbing, they really ought to rotate their bodies around. For some reason, wither skeletons drop regular bones, even though they're clearly scorched. For an upgrade, they should drop charred bones that create an ultra-potent fertilizer. Hunting in Minecraft is pretty easy, mostly because animals are a little bit daft. That's why they should act like a herd. If a member gets hurt, the others should scatter and disperse away from the instigator. This might result in some more interesting hunting techniques in the game. Swamps generate unique looking trees, but not their own log. Everyone loves building with wood, so a new plank type would be adored by all. The hoe has earned a bit of a reputation of being largely useless. To expand and stay in line with farming, the hoe could also destroy leaf blocks in bulk, a handy trick to clear away leftover canopies pretty quickly. Oddly, iron golems have been broken for a really long time. They were initially introduced to protect villagers from zombies, but due to how they spawn, they almost never show up. It's true. Think of all the villages you've ever passed. How many of them have actually had a resident golem? Probably very few. They spawn based on population and door count, something natural villagers rarely ever meet. This has resulted in a bizarre phenomenon, where the spawning mechanic exists almost exclusively to serve exploitative behaviour, rather than prevent a village from becoming a ghost town in its first night. For this reason, it'd make a lot of sense to rethink how golems appear in the world. Minecraft's AI isn't the best. It's so exploitable and predictive that it can be hoodwinked really easily. One example of this is how mobs can't jump gaps. A single block gap is kryptonite to nearly everything in the game. For increased robustness, clever mobs like skeletons and villagers should be able to make similar jumps that the player can. Over time, villagers have gotten more specific jobs. They can be weaponsmiths, fletchers, cartographers, and fishermen. These new jobs should be better reflected with new clothing and textures. At their inception, and likely before the Ender was conceived, Enderman had green eyes. This was changed when the Ender Dragon was added, and ever since they've had a magenta theme. It's long been assumed this is because the Endermen are under the dragon's influence. For continuity, Endermen should revert to their green skin when there is no active Ender Dragon in the world. It'd tell a nice, subtle story. Parrots can't currently reproduce. For a diversion from the status quo, parrots could lay eggs. Parrots are known to rarely produce young, so for extra depth they might only lay a single egg every so often. Status effects are a very real danger out in the Minecraft world. Milk clears all effects, but cows aren't known for their spelunking. So maybe water bottles could offer a similar remedy. Water's quite easy to find, so instead of outright clearing the potion, it could dilute down its effects, with a moderate cooldown between sips. Everyone likes colouring things, so name tags should be dyeable. The functionality to colour mob names is already there. Villagers were one of the very first pre-generated structures in the game. This means a lot of their design is somewhat dated and needs modernising. Horizontal logs could be used in farmlands, real anvils could be placed outside blacksmiths, and lampposts could use actual lamps. Everyone despises baby zombies. They're super speedy, fit through tiny holes other monsters can't. They refuse to burn in sunlight. And most annoyingly, they are often extremely hard to hit because of tall grass. A simple tweak would be letting swords swing through things like grass and flowers. Blazers originally had a much shorter detection range. This is however no longer the case. Not only can they spot you from a lengthy 48 blocks away, but they also snitch to their friends. A very real oversight here is while they can see you, you can't hear them from that distance. Because ghasts have always had a massive range, they by design make a racket no matter the distance. If a ghast has spotted you, you'll know. But because blazers were retroactively altered, they forgot to increase their volume. Having no audible feedback that you're in danger is a pretty big flaw. Blasting around with fireworks and elytra is a lot of fun. This same mechanic could be applied to other modes of transport, such as boats and minecarts, because who doesn't want a jet ski? Another older feature is book and quills. While handy for writing your manuscript, it's extremely cumbersome being unable to edit text without deleting everything after it. Approved by a developer themselves is Pigmen and Quartz. The Nether is arguably much safer than the overworld. It's just pigment and gravel. For an increase in pressure, Pigmen ought to jealously guard Quartz. The ore is everywhere and drops lots of XP with nothing to stop you. Were the Quartz guarded by a horde of angry pig monsters, that might make you think twice about taking it. Nether portal frames can be small or large, but a step further would be irregular borders, where the frame can have as many sides as you want. Punching stuff with your fist is a very large part of Minecraft. However, some blocks are distinctly sharper than others. It'd make a lot of sense if sharp blocks like cactus and glowstone hurt you if hit with a bare hand. A living, breathing world is excellent for immersion. Little details make the world believable. With that thought, why not have flowers open and close depending on the time of day? Wood variations are increasing, with more and more decor options. One feature still missing, however, is chests. Storage room organisation can get quite messy, so more distinct containers would be a godsend for many. Mycelium and grass battle it out for Dirt's heart. To expand further, maybe mycelium should overtake other organic materials such as mossy bricks, vines and leaves. Maybe those islands are isolated to keep the fungus at bay. For even more subtle visual cues, leaves in danger of decaying could perhaps display that with an animation where the leaf particles begin to drop from the block. To return to textures, slight block variation is always a nice detail. That's why spawners should look different depending on where you find them. Spawners can be found in 5 places: dungeons, mineshafts, strongholds, nether fortresses, and woodland mansions. Sponges are great, but to reuse them, they must be cooked. This feels a little weird, so instead they should dry on their own. If placed somewhere hot, like near lava, deserts, fire, or in the nether, they should just eventually revert to normal by themselves. There's not much reason to use different fuels. There are some very distinct best fuels, so perhaps different fuels should smelt in different ways. Maybe some are long-lasting but slow, and others speedy yet burn out quickly. You probably have a favourite cat. Tuxedo, Ginger, Siamese, or maybe even just Wild Ocelot. What you get is up to chance, so maybe the type of fish you use should decide instead. Also, cats don't like water. It'd make sense then that ocelots would avoid water like the plague, but maybe they can be negotiated into a boat. Giving the player more excuses to blow holes and stuff is always a good thing. So, to add more fun to the underground, mine shafts should occasionally spawn TNT blocks, with a tempting lever that you know exactly what to do with. Every group has their occasional weirdos, and Minecraft is definitely no exception. Collecting mobs can be fun, however some mobs are dangerous, and will not be complicit with your plans. To solve this, on very rare circumstances, a monster might spawn passive with no interest in hurting you. A minor inconvenience with enchantment tables is they don't hang on to items. Not only would this be handy, but it could also double as a cool little display. Items despawn after 5 minutes. However, there's no way to tell when it's going to happen. A common trick in video games is to have the item flash when its time is almost up. This way you get a bit of warning beforehand. That's it. Those were 50 tiny things that might improve Minecraft. Did you have a favourite? Or do you have a completely different little feature that you'd like to see added? Either way, I hope you enjoyed. I've been your one and only Simply Sark, and thank you very much for watching.